now, finally, we have reached the spot where the singer actually sings rather than declaiming and rather than just speaking. And on the guitar, this is a great moment from that dominant chord, all expectation waiting for at last the arrival of the tune in G major, where I think Llobet may have missed a trick because he does not use the whole chord of G, which I can't resist doing. If I do it in the context, you've got... That wonderful tune is the first moment that in the original version the singer actually sings. This is when the words are, "I never knew a man like Goya." Suddenly in the poem she opens up, and what she's talking about after all that innuendo and hints about what Goya was like, she talks about how she feels. I never knew a man who made me feel the way that Goya made me feel. It's a wonderful moment in the tune, and for the guitar, of course, it's a great moment of liberation when you suddenly go into the whole chord of G. So from there, and I will play that again, for another few bars, you've got this constant contrast between the major and the minor, but I will take you through some of the difficulties, which is the difficulty here in the tune. Even if you play the shorter chord of G, is how do you do... The way that Llobet resolved it is through a slur. So it sounds... which I think sounds a little bit weak, though I have to admit other players make it sound fantastic, but I can't do that. I find that it's a much fuller sound for me. What I'm doing is putting a barre, a half barre at the 5th fret, and playing the A and the G across the strings, as opposed to, which is what Llobet wrote. Structurally, I find that's a little bit weak because of its significance. And that sounds so full. The half barre at the 5th fret, you play the A on there, the G on the 2nd string, and then you follow the fingering. I have to admit that at some point I've realized now, looking at having the music in front of me, that a lot of these things I've developed them myself without any reference to the Llobet arrangement. So that's why I'm keeping my eye on the arrangement to see where are the differences. And here it comes again, the tune for the second time. This wonderful moment here. Flat, minor key, major key again, minor key, minor key, major, major key. No composer of that romantic period like Enrique Granados, the Spanish composers, knew how to handle that contrast between major and minor as well as Granados. The entire cycle of Maja pieces that he wrote is based on that wonderful contrast between the major and the minor. And it's worth remembering when you play that G minor chord, make sure that we hear that B flat really clearly. So I'll pick it up one more time. Beautiful harmonics there at the 5th. And remember, when you play harmonics, especially the 5th fret harmonics, in the right hand, come down the string at least halfway down between the sound hole and the bridge. You get much clearer harmonics as opposed to over the sound hole. The sound, you can hear that sound very weak. So you've got to bring your right hand down to catch that. So. There, I'm not sure that it's indicated. Another one of the 5th fret. Now this is a really tricky moment, and when we've got, following the arrangement, that low B flat is there. You can finger that 2-4 to get the stretch, but it's still a very quick jump to get to that B flat. The fingering that he's produced there produces this magnificent sound as an arrangement. Again, another little turn there, a little Morton. And another example here of the pizzicato, which he's written, and which I avoid as well, because I just, as I keep on saying, it's maybe a question of fashion, it just sounds a little bit mannered. Now suddenly we have an explosion of the major key. What a wonderful moment. All he's done as a composer is just pick out the arpeggio. But it's like so much great music, it's not the idea itself, it's the placement of that idea. It comes at exactly the right moment. To get up to there. So we go through a couple of the difficulties. After you come out of this arpeggio, the melody in arpeggio, that's difficult because it's got to sound smooth. Maybe not too much glissando, otherwise it sounds a bit too much. That's the top of the phrase, and that's hard to get to because you're on the stretch and you're at the 15th fret. It's the way you phrase it. Make sure that you put an accentuation at the top. Another little turn there which needs great confidence, so really play that quite loudly. And another difficult moment also for the tone. Make sure the tone doesn't go too thin. That sounds too thin, because all that's the singing and the melody which we want to hear as clearly as possible. So that's all difficult. This is an example how the hand and the arm have to work together. I collapse the arm a little bit, I bring it back to get into those notes with more confidence. Here, there. So the arm is dragged backwards. Harmonic again at the 7th fret, make sure you're down the string a bit. And now we have the G major arpeggio again, this time at double speed. And the difficulty is of course to get to that top note without too much of a delay. Unless you did what Segovia did, which he did a wonderful, like everything he did sounded incredible. And he did something like that which was completely out of time, but completely. But when he got to the top note, he sat on the top note for ages. And that sounds fantastic. It's completely out of time, of course. This is more in time. And you could repeat that. So this piece has got this fantastic development, and that's why it sounds so interesting. From the reticent tune at the beginning, which comes in slightly fragmented, to when it suddenly opens up in the major, in the singing part of the piece, and gradually it develops more and more of that beautiful open major quality, a reflection of the words of the original song, which is that I never, knew a man.